Welcome to the Sales Readiness podcast brought to you by SBI. Each episode features an unfiltered conversation between our host, SBI's Managing Director Ray Makela, and an industry expert about the strategies, skills, and solutions that drive sales performance to the next level. These conversations are packed with expert advice, real-world examples, and practical tips to help you close deals, lead teams, and outperform the competition. In this episode, Ray and Annie Stefano continue their conversation by focusing on implementation tactics and the impact of customer success. The two dive into the sales to CS handoff, the value of building strategic partnerships, and practical ways to reduce friction while elevating the customer experience. You'll also hear how AI is reshaping customer success and how the human connection remains core to the function.
Hello again. I'm Ray Makela, Managing Director of the Training Business here at SBI. And Annie, so pleased to be joined by you today again to talk about client success and share a little bit about both the journey, coming on board to lead our client success training and also bringing the curriculum with you from Growth Molecules. Maybe we could start and just have you do a quick introduction. And then today I'd really like to focus, building on the part one, but focus on the implementation of client success training and kind of what that learning journey looks like. So I look forward to jumping into that. But yeah, maybe you can introduce yourself, just say hello.
Yeah, of course. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Annie Stefano. I am a senior training consultant for client success. And it has been such a pleasure. Round one was great. So here we are at round two. And I think what's really great about the client success program is, again, the idea of offering a full go-to-market program. All teams contribute to success and to the customer experience. So it really allows to not only practice that mindset, but then also give each team essential purpose and really keep customers and grow revenue. I mean, that's ultimately what we're all doing, right?
Absolutely. And we have a number of clients, as we've talked about, that have this challenge or that ask about, well, yeah, but what do we do about the client success team, or how should we think about them? And so I think the first objective is, what are we trying to accomplish with that program? Like, why would they even engage us for client success training? Maybe you could talk about that just from a perspective of what are some of the mindset shifts and behavior changes that we're looking to accomplish when they engage with us on client success training.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the first pieces is this idea and mindset of we're moving from buyer to customer. We know it on paper. I mean, that's the whole point of sales ownership, right? But there are a lot of differences between the two. Some themes could remain the same, but ultimately, you've got the buyer. They're a customer now. So what do you do with them, right? So there's this mind shift of the customer side of the journey. Sometimes, if that journey is not carved out well, that could hinder the idea or the formation of what a client success team really can do to impact revenue. So if you don't have a strong customer map or life cycle process, that can really kind of take a step back into what you're going to allow your team to prove, right? And become revenue drivers instead of cost centers. So having kind of a clear understanding of where you want the customer to go from that handoff moment to renewal, would be so helpful in order to define how you see client success being, a function, an operating function, and a successful one, is usually one of the biggest hurdles you can see. So for our training, we really try to focus on what skills do they need to go ahead and nurture the customer from that handoff moment into not just renewal, because that's the dream. Every customer should renew, but then what customers need to expand in order to achieve the outcomes as to why they bought your product in the first place.
Hmm.
So when you keep that mindset on there, that goal is pretty heavy. So you have to kind of understand where are those points in the journey that we need to hit home on in order to get there.
Yeah, and let me pull on that a little bit. I mean, what are some of the skills that you see client success teams struggle with, like that they're not doing, and that get in the way of those renewals or those upsell, cross sell?
hmm Yes, the skills that you're seeing that teams and leaders are also asking for, and how the market is, what the market's looking for, are becoming more strategic thinkers, bigger anticipators. You're also looking for people who are more efficient and productive. So, something as, essential foundational as time management, it's one of our most popular classes because managing time effectively, we all think we can do it, but are there ways to do it better? Because we have to not only take care of the tasks that are client impacting, but then we also have tasks that are client facing. And they're just as important. Me working on an executive business review with an enterprise customer up for a multi-year renewal is just as important, even though I'm not facing the client yet, as maybe a critical objection handling or, a product piece of our software is not working, right? They're of equal urgency and time, but one's not impacting or facing, client facing or client impacting. So those things are not necessarily inherently learned, and it can change from lines of business to lines of business. You can go from one SaaS industry to another, and how they define those moments in the client journey or the ask of your role can be substantially different. So those skills still need to be carved out. Those skills need to still be taught. And they also need to know that there's opportunities to get better at them, right? So being more productive, being more anticipatory, being able to lead engaging meetings that are efficient and of quality time. Everyone learned, over the past few years that,
Yeah.
we want meetings not to have meetings. We want meetings to be efficient, productive, and have good outcomes. And, with our customers, we want to talk to them all the time, but the reality is we may not be able to. So, how do we make our time that we do have, while limited, the most efficient as possible? And those are all things that we need to continue to do.
No, I love that. And yeah, for I think many participants, learners that they've never been exposed to that or haven't even thought about that, right? Of, thinking about strategic versus just the urgent and getting caught up in the daily grind and the fire drills versus carving out the time to really think longer term about the customer and about the priorities. I think
Yeah.
that's critical. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say, in terms of the biggest skills that teens tend to be challenged on too, is this idea that you are the keeper of your calendar. So you know what you need to get done more than anybody else. You know what client calls you have coming up more than anybody else. Or we know how many clients in our portfolio have a renewal coming up in June. So the idea of backwards planning and giving yourself the time to get ahead may seem like you have no time left on your calendar, but you are the keeper. So if you learn how to manage those pieces of time and really plan out much as you can, and then switch and adjust or delete, you're done, right? Or become the hero for a client because you can move that around. That's what you got to do in order to really get everything you need to do at the quality and rigor that you need to do it.
Yeah, I love that. Well, let's talk more about this kind of journey. And as we said, a lot of organizations are still getting their arms around client success, or maybe they're evolving. What have you seen? I mean, I think we've all seen potentially poor examples or challenges that clients run into. What are some of the success stories and best practices you've seen for integrating client success more into that overall go-to-market function and really being closely tied to the sales versus kind of an add-on or an afterthought?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more that you can find way to bridge teams to benefit the customer or the outcome, the better. There's obviously times where there'll be responsibilities to the role on either sales or customer or client success that you want to keep refined, and like that's important for this role specifically. But one of the easiest things and one of the most challenging points of contention in any SaaS or service org would be the handoff, would be the sales to CS moment, the handing of the baton, some of us would say. Or I would compare it often to that moment in a wedding where the DJ has the door open and the bride and groom walk out. That's the highest point of engagement where the buyer turns into a customer. And it's the you'll never get that energy and engagement back as a client success manager again. As much as we'd like to think it, or the relationship with the client is great over time, that is the highest point of I have their attention. It's the point of which I'm able to also show I am a leader in this partnership. I can be a strategic partner for you. I represent the software or the product that you purchased, and I'm here for you and your outcomes. But we have to also partner with sales, and
Right.
it's hard. Sales doesn't want to let go of the customer.
Right.
CSMs want to keep them to themselves, right? So one of the first things would be, how do you bridge those teams together? And usually that is solved by combining those teams into a customer journey mapping workshop, or a session where they come together to learn how their inputs actually impact the experience. Any way you can find training and enablement that combines them with the similar outcomes and then break them off into training that's specific to their roles, the better. The more that you could bridge them, it's going to make a world of difference between how they work together in the future.
Yeah, that's a fantastic insight, because I think the that friction does show up, and we're all kind of tackling it from different directions, and everybody wants the client to be happy, right? So to your
Right.
point, sales feels like, oh no, I own that relationship, and client success feels like they own it, and there's a little bit of contention there, but making sure there's orchestration across those roles. And to your point, and I remember hearing the term moments that matter, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of that handoff and that launch of that customer and bringing those together, to me, that's one of those moments that matters. Like, you have to get that right, celebrate it, make sure it's intentional, and it's not just an afterthought. So we're setting client success up to be successful, and also keep the line of communication open to sales.
Right, right. Like,
Hmm.
one of the biggest things you'll find is most teams don't actually have an internal kickoff call. They have an email, or they
Right.
have a
Right.
document or an object in Salesforce. That doesn't really set up the CSM as successfully as having that 20-minute efficient meeting with the salesperson and really talk through this buyer who now
Right.
is becoming a customer. That alone makes a world of difference for how confident and capable the CSM can then have a kickoff that isn't repeating the same questions, that can actually strategically prepare what they think the outcome will be like for the next year or two, depending on their contract, right? It shows them and steps them up as a leader so much more. And like we said, that kickoff is the most highest engaged moment a CSM can get. So the more that sales can help lift us up, so that then the customer can already see I have a strategic partner looking out for me, the better.
No, that's great. Um, Yeah, lots of work to do there. Let's talk a little bit about the frontline manager role. In our sales training, we talk a lot about engaging and enabling managers so that they can reinforce and coach and kind of be that conduit. How do you see that in the client success training? And what role does the manager play? And how do you make sure they're engaged in the ongoing enablement and the ongoing coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So, first and foremost, they're participants. We have them participate. They're part of our breakout rooms, our interactive activities, our collaborative conversation. They often are part of those initial discovery meetings and conversations where we're really learning and speed dating the team, right? Getting afloat with what their personas are called, and all of those components. But then we have them actually participate as much as possible. The majority of the time, it's such a benefit. The team wants to see the leader learn with them, and also for the leader, and as a former one, I love to hear what my team was thinking without judgment, in a safe environment to learn, to try, to apply things and fail, try again, succeed. It just gave me more information about my team that I could later then use to coach them more effectively, right? So, as a leader, you're going to only come out with more and better information about each team member, and then also how your team operates in general. It's a big benefit. So as much as possible, we encourage leaders to participate. We know their loads are heavy as well. But if their team is taking time out from client facing time to do it, then it's important that you try as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot more discussion there as well. That could be a whole separate podcast for the future. But you
Absolutely.
no matter how great the training is going to be, or how great the enablement team is, we need the managers to lean in and be there for the long haul. So,
Absolutely.
one of the things we often get asked about on the sales training side is how are we measuring success? How are we measuring the outcomes? And certainly we look at satisfaction levels and behavior change, but ultimately, is it producing the business outcomes that make a difference and that the client's looking for? How do you look at that for client success? And what are you measuring from a KPI or quantitative perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. First and foremost, anytime you can reinforce whatever your organizational KPI metrics are you're trying to show, keep doing that. Now, with that said, training is a little bit different. I think the biggest challenge to training is time to see it applied, time to be coached through it, and then time to see a difference. So it's depending on the skill or depending on the outcome you're trying to achieve, you have to have a reasonable window of time to see that too. So, for example, one of our most popular courses is on expansion and really diving into what each of those growth opportunities look like and how does that impact how I as a CSM look at my book of business. So while out the gate of, let's say we just finished training, I could start comparing NRR, looking at net retention. Um, I need to give that a little bit more time to see an actual difference as they
Right.
apply those skills that they learned, right? So usually time to value is a big one. How long is it taking for customers to get from point A to point B? So onboarding teams, time to value is really great because with the skills that they're using, are they being more efficient? Are they getting better business outcomes? Are they getting more engaged stakeholders? That is always a great one to look at. For teams who are owning revenue or just driving revenue to be owned, then you've got, your NRR. You could even look at your GRR. Those would be the most popular there. So usually time is going to be a factor though. NPS is great because if you have a couple of meetings with clients in a 3-week period, you could probably start to see an NPS change really fast to your point earlier.
No, I love that, and that's a leading indicator, right? And we know that if NPS improves, likely retention will improve, and
Correct.
cross sell will get easier, and all of those things that go along with it. So, yeah, I like that idea because you may not be able to wait 2 years, right, to see if you're
No.
getting the renewal uplift. But that's great. Well, just
Yeah.
a couple of questions to kind of tie this all together. But I'd love to get your thoughts on, looking ahead. What are some of the trends you're seeing? What are you excited about? Certainly AI is top of mind for everyone,
Oh
but
yeah.
what are you seeing in the industry from a client success perspective that, we should be keeping an eye on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to continue to keep centered that the reason CS is important and impactful is because it's human centered. It doesn't mean we can't use AI or technical tools or, technology at our fingertips to do our job better. It just means that at the end of the day, a human is still going to want that relationship and that nurturing within how they use their products to meet their business outcomes. Um, with that said, you also have to scale that. So that's why leveraging tools like AI and leveraging your CRM, if you're not leveraging your CRM to automate, emails when users and stakeholders are using your system correctly, you're hurting your CSMs. They're just going to be writing emails all day long, right? And they can no longer be proactive because they're looking themselves at, all the information themselves all the time. So the more that you can leverage your tech stack and your tools to help them really do the hard stuff, which is be human and be customer centric, the better that they will be advisors and strategic partners. And so that is one of the biggest things that shifts you're seeing today, and that leads to them being strategic thinkers. Not every client is cookie cutter. You design a journey because that's the standard level of care, as I say. That's the expected standard level of care every client should have. You're always going to have a client that's going to have a little bit outside of that scope or do things a little bit differently. They have to be able to monitor that effectively, but then also, nurture them through how to expand in the way that makes sense for their business. And so that strategy side is a huge shift for teams right now. Um, I'd also say, the anticipatory piece and being proactive, they should not be in their CRM for hours trying to find a report that they need. So the more that you can break those silos and build those bridges with your, CRM admin or Salesforce admin, the better, because those systems should really be working for us and we shouldn't be working for them. And then the last shift is being revenue owning and driving.
Hmm.
So more and more CS teams are having, a stake at the table with revenue because they're doing a lot of that work. They're strategically pushing the customer towards those tools and features. that sales is trying to sell and product is trying to develop. And they're also strategically figuring out which customers of mine in my book of business are best for that. They're not just selling to everyone, which is very important, right? So those are the three things I'd say that are really
Yeah.
in the market right now.
No, it's exciting. And I think, to your point of how do we enable and leverage the tech and tools and AI to provide better insights, right? And better diagnostics and help us help our customers more because we have access versus you're right. You're spending time kind of plowing through the reports yourself. Or, I mean, I'm a big Satya Nadella fan from Microsoft. And he said, it's not about AI taking over our jobs. It's about freeing us up from the mundane and the repetitive and the stuff that AI is really good at so that we can come to our client more informed, or even to your point about anticipating, we can have diagnostics that alert us that we should be paying attention to this particular area. So we go in proactively versus, waiting for that firefight. So I
Absolutely.
think
And
that's
it's
really
vital.
great.
We have to more than ever now. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Well, hey, last area of question. I mean, I know you've seen a lot of organizations go through this journey. You've helped them with their client success, training, the behaviors, the skills. What are some lessons, just some takeaways that you would share with our audience that, they should think about related to this whole area?
So, two things that I will share that I learned early on in my career. I transitioned out of the classroom into the boardroom, as they say. So, I had a lot to learn when I first jumped ship into the SaaS world. And one of the first things I learned early on was this idea: it's not I, it's we. So even if I am the main point of contact for the customer, it's always we, because the entire company is always working for them, with them, to meet their goals. And it's such a small shift in language, and it doesn't take away from my leadership in the relationship, but it just showed them that we are a team to help them meet their goals with our products and services. And it just changed how they looked at the company, they looked at the product, even in times of objection. It was very much a we moment. The second thing that I would share in my experience would be that um, it's okay to say, not that you don't know, I would rephrase it differently, but it's okay to say, let me find out for you, or let me dive in more. Let me ask my experts and ask more questions so you understand what they're looking for. Too often, entry level CS team members or anyone who's coming into a client facing role for the first time or in a different company or a different product, we don't ask enough questions because we're scared to, or we're scared we can't answer them. And you just can't let that block you anymore, because it's worse if you keep going down that tunnel of I don't know, and you don't ask, and the customer will just get more angry and have more objections. That's harder to overcome in the relationship than it is if you just asked anyway. So just don't be afraid to ask more questions, and don't be afraid to say, I'm going to get more information for you and I'll give you a call.
No, I think that's a great mindset and a great place to kind of wrap, to think about issues are going to come up. And it's something I learned early in my career. Like it's not when it's or if, but it is going to happen. And it's how we handle that that's more important. And in fact, some of my best client relationships are ones that got a little contentious or there was friction. And we proved ourselves by working through that or solving that problem or going that extra mile. And then they're like, oh, this is somebody I can work with. And what we know is they want companies they can partner with for the long term. And so they don't want to be brushed off or explained away. They want to be listened to. And if we can help resolve those issues, I think we come out stronger because of it.
Absolutely. It changes the game for us. And they'll think twice even if you do a price increase at renewal.
Well, that's great. Well, again, great place to wrap up. Thanks again for your time today. Really a pleasure chatting. More to discuss on this topic, but look forward to having you on the team and engaging and helping our clients with their client success organizations.
Thank you, Ray. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to grow with everyone.
All right.
All right. Bye.
You've been listening to SBI's Sales Readiness Podcast with Managing Director Ray Makela hosting. Visit sbigrowth.com to read SBI's latest research, join upcoming events, or learn about SBI's GTM and training services. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and connect with us on LinkedIn.